This meeting is being recorded.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. First order of business is to recognize our new commissioner, Mr. Ken Bragg. Ken, we want to thank you for agreeing to serve, and we welcome you here.
Thank you.
You're going to be a big addition to the commission.
It's a privilege to be here.
Thank you very much. Linda, we have a quorum, and then if I can start and go around the room, Max, and introduce yourself.
Sure. Max Braswell with the Arkansas Forestry Association.
Jeff Brazil with the Arkansas Department of Ag Forestry. I'm the district forester of Clarksville.
Vicki Davis, I'm with Forestry District 8.
Patrick Coffey, University of Arkansas, Monticello.
Abby Stokes, Senator Arkansas.
David, Senator Bowles.
Hi, I'm Alice Johnson, Department of Agriculture. Shayla Sowers, Department of Agriculture.
West Ford, Department of Agriculture.
Tyler Ochsner, Arkansas Farm Bureau.
Aiden Massey, Arkansas Department of Agriculture.
Jim Jolly, Arkansas Department of Agriculture. Chandler Barton, Arkansas Department of Agriculture. Inu Sasaki, Department of Agriculture.
Thank all of y'all for being here and look forward to your participation today. So the next thing before we get into the agenda, Ken Bragg is replacing a longtime member of the commission and past chair of the commission, Steve Anthony. And I would like for the commission for us to pass a resolution recognizing Steve and thanking Steve for his service to the forestry, many years of service to the Forestry Commission. So would ask y'all to draft a resolution, but we would approve it in principle, recognizing his service and thanking him for his service and participation. Is that acceptable?
Yes, I'll move. Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There's a standard resolution that's been passed for every retiring commissioner, so it should be simple and straightforward.
Hey, Ray, is there any kind of plaque or anything that he's gonna have, or?
We were saving it for you, Dr. Walker.
I'm not on there.
That's why we can't give it to Steve. Steve indicated that, he doesn't know we're passing the resolution, but he indicated he wasn't interested in the plaque.
Okay.
What?
I was going to get Secretary Ward.
Yeah, go ahead.
Secretary Ward, would you like to introduce Shaylin and Alex?
Oh, yeah, sure. So we have had a couple of, personnel administrative shifts within the department, so I wanted to introduce themselves, but I also wanted to just kind of recognize what they'll be doing within the department. So I'll start with Alex. Alex is going to be moving into the chief of staff role for the department. So Cynthia Edwards she's retiring in September. So Alex is going to be taking that spot. She's been with state government for a while. She's familiar with our programs and is getting up to speed on a lot of those things now. It's coming up from the Department of Transformation and Shared Services, so has a lot of great government experience that we know will be helpful for the department. And then Shaylin as well, a lot of time within state government. Used to work for in Governor Hutchinson's office. Was recently at Parks, Heritage and Tourism, so we brought her over to be our Director of Marketing and Communications for the department. We're excited to have both of them on board. We just wanted the two really key positions within the department. We just wanted to highlight them, and certainly please continue to reach out to me if I can ever be helpful, but them as well if there's ever anything we can do for y'all. Thanks, Scott.
I'd just like to recognize Wes and all of his efforts in getting Mr. Bragg appointed. Wes, we thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Appreciate all your help there too.
Okay, first order of business is minutes from our previous meeting that were emailed to you and they're in your packet.
I move we approve those minutes.
Is there any question or discussion about the minutes?
I'd like to second.
Mr. McAlpine, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right, register for committee.
I know this is my first one.
Is the bell wrong?
I'm good. Okay.
They put you first for a reason.
We've got two applications to look at today that they were also presented this morning. One is for a registered forester who passed his examination in May. and the other is, the reciprocity application.
Tell us who their names are. or-
I can. The one that passed the examination is Hector Rodriguez, and the reciprocity application is Michael Huffman.
And y'all discuss these.
The board discussed these and, would ask that, made a motion and it was approved that we ask the commission to approve these individuals' licensure.
Okay, can I take that in the form of a motion then?
Yes, sir.
Got it first, can I get a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Calpine, any questions? Since none of us know these folks, we assume y'all.
The one that took the examination is a UAM grad and comes highly recommended. And the other is a reciprocity from Georgia, but everybody's got their paperwork. Everything is in order and.
Very good. Then all in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? All right, those are approved. Okay,
And, I would just say we're glad to have Candace a part of the Board of Registered Forestry. This is her first meeting, but she did a wonderful job. She asked if she could speak for 20 minutes today, and I denied that, Rex. I knew you would deny it.
you can speak. Put you on the agenda.
Now you're making me out to be a liar, right?
We're proud to hear. Thank you for keeping them organized. It's a rough crowd they're hanging around with.
We had two other items that the board had. So we had the two applications, and then the other item was, we have a individual UAM student that wants to take the test but has learning disabilities. And so we would there's no provision for allowing that, but we would ask that this individual be permitted to take the exam with, the protocols for that additional time because of the disability. And then we would, in the meantime, our attorney that's with us would draft a resolution. So the next time we'll have that covered, that we would bring up at our next meeting and bring that back to y'all, right?
Yes, and does the college have standards associated with learning disabilities that y'all, is that the standards we would apply?
Yeah, Matthew Pelkey at UAM. So yes, a student has to provide information to our Office of Special Student Services. They contact the professors. They don't identify at all what the disability is, but the student can then request that this Office of Special Student Services administer any exam. And so that's actually part of our policy that we comply with that. And this individual has indicated that they will. The disability is always confirmed by, medical documentation.
And typically, the accommodations would typically be extra time for the test.
That's
It
correct.
could be that they would have someone read the test to them or something, depending upon what the disability is. But these are all things to help get the information from the student so that they can demonstrate their understanding. So it's not giving them anything, it's just giving them a fair chance.
Yeah, that is correct.
And so I would make the motion that we approve that.
Second.
Second, by it. Any question about it? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed?
Thank you. And then the only other item we have.
And is there a way that we can craft that to where that can, so that you don't have to come each time there is that? Okay,
We're gonna do some tinkering with the application to check a box on that.
We wanted to address the applicant today, and then we're gonna do a broader.
yes, okay, we'll bring it back into a broader.
We wanted to bring you the wording today, but our attorney suggested he might take time to write that. So he's gonna write that and we'll have that the next time.
There's a lot of documentation, you don't have to start at the beginning, I mean, you're talking to a guy that's had a child with learning disability, I'm very familiar with it, and it's very important that you recognize that to help students get the information they know, that's what the whole process is about, so.
And Ray, the other item that we had is just an information item, and that is the, Southern Association of Registered Forestry Board. They had a meeting and we sent a couple people to it. John McAlpine and Dr. Pelkey went and attended, and they've changed that. It used to be an annual meeting where everybody was in person. They're going to an in-person on even years and a virtual meeting on odd years. So the next in-person meeting will be in 26, and that's going to be, Arkansas is going to host that. So and at that time, I think John will be the chairman of that committee also, there'll be more information as we get there, plans and so on, but that'll be a good thing for Arkansas to show what we do here.
Yeah, in person, and where you think you're gonna host it at?
We're still looking at different options. It'll probably be closer to central Arkansas, just from air traffic. Just for some folks be flying in and everything.
Right.
Typically a tour and stuff, so we'll make sure we have some good facilities.
Anything to help people understand what we're doing here. Luke?
And that concludes our report, right?
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Roberts. They hadn't messed with your clicker yet, so you won't be in good shape.
We'll see. We know how technology works, right?
If I may, before Robert starts, he's gonna introduce some of the work that we did with, the tornado response, and it was pretty significant. And so Robert's gonna walk initial phase of kind of the IC, if you will, for that night when the storms occurred, give you an overview of that. And then as we move through forest health and forest management, you'll see, in urban forestry, you'll see the responses that we did over that month period.
It is working. There we go. All right, so we'll just start off with a brief rundown of what the fires were through the quarter. We started the quarter in April. We had quite a few fires in April, a little bit above our 10-year average for the number of fires, but well below for the average for acres burned. But we ended the quarter a little bit above average for numbers, but a little below for acres. But a pretty standard quarter for the fire report for this year, or for this past quarter. Looking ahead, it's summertime, right? So, it's summertime in Arkansas, so it's supposed to be pretty hot. The seasonal outlook is showing, pretty good chances for above average temperatures over the next 3 months. And depending on what happens in the Gulf, from what I'm hearing from most of the long range analysts, they're giving us a little bit above average rainfall for the rest of that period, but a lot of that hinges on what happens in the Gulf. Everybody knows we've already had one tropical system come through the state, so we'll see how many of those we get this year. Which it was well needed when it came through. We were just on the verge of starting to see some activity. We had a 200 acre and a 300 acre fire right before that tropical system came through. So for an equipment, we'll move on to what we have for equipment. Just a little breakdown of our dozers. We have 105 units in the state that we have available for fire response. 4 of those dozers are in places where they're not setting at a county office, setting at an office loaded on a truck, ready to go. We have a couple scattered around at like Balcom Nursery and down at Bluff City and a few other places scattered around, but we still include them in our total, because if we did need them, they're still available for us. So, we have 105, 32% of those 105 are older than 20 years old, or 20 years old or older. And another 20% are between the age of 15 and 19 years. And this is a bit of a problem. It's when 52% of our fleet is 15 years of age or older, it's an issue for us. Now, we did get 5 dozers in right at the beginning of the last fiscal year. We weren't able to order any last fiscal year. Our plans are to order 4 or 5 this year, depending on how the budget goes. We've got some money and some federal grants that we can use to purchase some dozers, and that should be coming in around October. So it'll probably be then before we can really take a real hard look at trying to get some ordered. We'll have to go through the bid process through state procurement. We've had a long-term contract up until last year. We had a long-term contract for dozers, but that's expired now, and we'll have to rebid all that off. So it'll take a little bit of time for us to get that process done. And the reason that older dozers present such a problem is once they get 15 years of age and a little bit older, parts start becoming an issue. When we do have a breakdown, sometimes some of the parts, they discontinued them, and they're just not as available as they were before. Plus what we do with them,
We don't have a lot of hours on our dozers, but what we see is abuse just from inherently what we do is hard on the equipment. So, parts wear out faster for us than they do on a general, just construction, a dozer that was on a construction job somewhere. So, usually they would expect to get 2,000 hours out of what's called an undercarriage on the dozer. We generally get somewhere around 1,000 or a little less depending on the model. So our parts wear out a little faster, and that tends to become the problem with us. It's not the hours, it's what we do with them that creates the issue for us. So that's where we are on dozers. Pickups last year, we did a very good job with pickups last fiscal year. In FY 23, we ordered 16 pickups. 12 of those were received and paid for in FY 23. 4 of them come in after the change of the fiscal year. They were paid for out of FY 24. We have 6 more pickups on order now that were ordered in FY 23. They just didn't make it in before the end of the fiscal year. But we expect them to start coming in fairly quickly. There's already one brand new truck sitting in the parking lot now, so I'm expecting most of them were ordered in a very short amount of time, so I'm expecting those to start come rolling in pretty quick. But it's a problem when, you know, it's not a problem, but it does affect us when we order them in 23 and then they don't come in till 24. We have to pay them out of the fiscal year that we acquire them, not necessarily when we order them. So hopefully we'll get those 6 in pretty quick. And we have plans to continue to replace that fleet. We have about 157 small vehicles, passenger vehicles in the fleet. So it's a never ending process replacing those vehicles. Let's see. So moving on to a little bit of a training report. The last quarter of the year is usually when we do most of our big trainings. We have a 2-year wildland fire or not a 2-year, a 2-week, sorry, a 2-week wildland fire academy that we host in May every year. We held that this year. We hosted along with partners with the U.S. Forest Service, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and a few other folks that are scattered in there as well. But this last year, we had 92 certificates earned by participants at that academy. That's a lot of training, a lot of hours that gets put into training, and that's departmental staff. It's not just our staff. We send some of the marketing folks, Aiden, and there was one other that went. We send them through our it's a public information officer classes. So we send them to those trainings as well. So if they wind up on a fire somewhere, they're familiar with our language and the terms that we use, and they can convey that to the public. We also had our Dozer Academy, and this is a week-long training that we do for our newer rangers. And it's just to get them familiarized with the equipment that we have. And we bring equipment in from all over the state, so they get to run every type of a piece of equipment that we have, plus all the trucks that we have across the state. So they get a good idea of what equipment is scattered across the state, and they get an opportunity to get on all of it and drive it and operate it. They also do things like they get training on what happens if you throw a track while you're in the woods. That's always a fun endeavor when you have one of those come off and you're in the middle of nowhere. So we give them pointers over the years of how we accomplished getting it back on without breaking somebody's back. So we train them on those types of things, plus how to recover a stuck dozer. That's not a picture anybody wants to see, but the reality is we stick dozers. And when you stick one, you got to get it out. So there's ways that are easier than others to get them out. There's safer ways than others to get them out. So we give them training on that kind of thing. And we had about 25 of our staff go through that training. It's starting to become, it's getting recognized across the nation. We had 2 students show up this year, asked to come. They were, they're U.S. Forest Service employees out of Texas. And so they came up this year. We had some students out of Oklahoma, which we've been hosting them, since we really kicked this thing off. We've had Oklahoma send one or two every year to us. But when those people come in, it doesn't really cost us anything for them to be there. And then they bring equipment as well. So we get to see other equipment that other states have, and we get to see how they do things. And it's really beneficial to us too, because anytime we can collaborate like that, we get ideas from them, they get ideas from us, and it makes us all better for it. We also had refreshers across the state for all of our field staff. So that keeps our training staff pretty busy when those are going on. We go out, it's a day in every district to go, and we just do some training on different topics every year. We usually look at some fire review where there was either an entrapment or a fatality. And we look at those fires and study them, and we talk about how we can avoid that happening here in our state. And then usually some other type of informative training. We've done things like how to doing spot forecast, requesting spot forecast from the Weather Service and a few things like that. So it's just general training for them to be able to keep things fresh on their mind from year after year. And then we also put on some basic trainings in District 5 and District 8. We've kind of changed the way we deliver that training up. We're trying to catch people quicker as they start for us, instead of having that one time a year and having a ranger start right after it, him having to wait for a year before we put it on. We've kind of started putting it on in the districts instead of trying to have one training. So that catches folks a lot quicker in their career than having to wait on that training to happen. Yes, sir.
Going back to refresher training, training is mandatory,
Yes, sir.
and you make sure that everybody goes through it.
Yes, sir. If they miss, and if they're not there, I mean, people take off, they have leave scheduled. If they miss their district, they're required to come to another district to take the
I
training.
don't wanna know.
Yes, sir.
Because it's always a problem to get everybody.
Yeah, it's always an issue. And when you're dealing with 100 and some odd people, I don't know exactly how many, 160, I think right now we have in the field, you're gonna miss one or two. And so if someone can't make another district, we will put an extra one on to gather everybody up that was missed. So, but we do make sure everybody gets through that.
Right.
So moving on and to introduce the tornado response, everybody knows we have tornadoes on 526. This is a map that we got this from the National Weather Service. It shows all 16 tracks that went across North Arkansas that night, or that morning, actually. They're not all really big, but the yellow tracks are the EF2s, the oranger tracks are EF3, and the green are EF1. And those colors are kind of close together when you get far apart, but it wasn't my map, so I just had to work with what I got. But those 16 tracks affected 9 counties across the northern part of the state, and some of them are very small. There's one right there around Pocahontas, just south of Pocahontas, that you will miss. I don't even think it's not as big as the dot that used to designate the city, but they did record it. So we had really 2 main areas that we focused on with our initial response to it. We got called out that night pretty much as soon as it happened. There were crews being called out, and like I said, in 2 really main areas that we responded to. In Benton County, we had crews working around War Eagle Mill and Decatur. And they spent most of the night there and most of the day there, helping clean roads out and get access to people. You can see the kind of access that we're trying to do. We're a little faster with our bulldozers than people are with chainsaws and throwing things out of the way. So we try to clean those roads out, and it's not uncommon to have ambulances and fire trucks right behind us as we're going down the road. We also had folks working over in District 8 in Baxter County, around Salesville, and then on the other side of Norfolk Lake, there were some core ground that we helped clear some roads, getting some folks in and access into a core campground that got hit over there. So we had I think it was 6 or 8 counties now that all those crews were called out and were working in those 2 areas. So that was our initial response, and we spent a couple of days just clearing roads and working with the local OEMs and sheriff's offices and county judges, getting access into those locations.
Robert,
Yes, sir.
are you getting quick calls from the emergency services now? I know in the past we've had some
It really.
awful delays, that they didn't look at us as a first response on some of those.
You know, it really depends on the area. Some OEMs are very fast and county judges are really fast to call us. Some of the places that maybe don't know us as well, maybe our folks aren't as outgoing and going and having, relationships with those county officials. They don't get called out as much, but that's something we try to get them to do. But not everywhere, but in general, yeah, we get called pretty quick. And then, we have a good relationship with Division of Emergency Management as well. So if the counties don't call us and they think we can help, the Division of Emergency Management will notify us if they think we need to know something.
We just need to get our name out a lot more because
Yeah.
it is, we do have equipment.
We've got the resources
And can take care of those things.
yes, sir. And we need to be a resource for those communities. Anybody that needs help, we need to be a resource for them to reach out to. All right, well, that concludes my report unless y'all have any questions for me. Follow up there. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you very much. Okay, we can't.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So our assistance didn't stop at initial response to these tornadoes, and I'll highlight a couple of ways that we've helped since the tornadoes have occurred and the ongoing efforts that are still happening. So one way we can greatly assist communities is responding in the urban forestry area. And what that entails is these communities that face these wind events are tasked with a whole lot of risk mitigation, removal of hazardous trees. And so for that reason, a region-wide team known as the Urban Forest Strike Team was created several years ago to assist public lands communities with prioritizing where they do this risk mitigation on the urban forest. So what that means is teams of trained hazard assessors and certified arborists can visit parks and actually create spatial data of where these cities and communities need to focus their efforts on removing hazardous trees. What this also does is helps communities access FEMA reimbursement potential with great documentation on where they've done the work and where the debris removal has occurred. Furthermore than that, Chrissy Kimbrough is in the room today. She's our urban community forestry program manager. Just give us a wave back there. Has become very much an expert on urban forestry damage assessments and what communities can do after the storm to address their urban canopy. And so if we're not actually having boots on the ground, she's greatly served as a consultant for communities, just helping them over the phone and through emails on what they need to do next to deal with this really big task ahead of them. So the call for our capability and assistance went out, and Bentonville Parks and Rec responded saying that they wanted our assistance. And so a team of surveyors led by Chrissy conducted their survey across major parks in Bentonville, and 767 trees were identified that needed work. This is removals or pruning of hazardous limbs. So a whole lot more trees than that were looked at by this team, and these communities now have something to go off of where they need to do work. Good bar. So just a couple pictures of what they were faced with, a lot of trees down, debris all over the place on these parks, places where kids play, where people walk, around their communities. So it's no small task to clean this up, and I know Bentonville really appreciated what we were able to provide. So those 5 arrows there, just want to highlight some of our personnel, Chrissy being on the far left. We also had County Forester Rosie, Ranger Scott Van Hook, who's local to Bentonville. And we had a couple of personnel travel from across the state that had already been trained on how to do this work, Bill and Skylar. So we were also joined by Alabama Forestry Service and Commission, and Texas A&M Forest Service. So the expertise is across the region, and we put the call out, and we were fortunate that they responded to help us. Okay. Moving on from urban forestry response. Dr. Cunningham recognized early on that we needed a good assessment of the forest damages that occurred from these storms. And so we highlighted 4 specific areas in the state that had severe forest damages. So that is areas where greater than 50% of the trees were down. So those 3 of those areas were EF3 storms or tornadoes. And one of them was the Hobbs State Park area, which had 2 EF1s that did a number on just a very large area. So this assessment, when it was completed, estimated that timber losses were valued at over 18 million. And that was over 24,000 acres that were impacted. Shortly after this assessment was shared with the governor's office, Governor Sanders wrote a letter to Secretary Vilsack in support of disaster assistance. And we greatly appreciate her highlighting the forestry impact that occurred and the need for assistance there. So just give you a closer look at those areas and how it was analyzed. These red polygons were first created using aerial survey, where we identified where the impact areas were. And then within them, the green areas are the forested landscape. And that is where the estimations on losses and value were conducted. So I have a map that shows the specifics for the volume and the estimated value for each of these 4 areas. Next up is the Hobbs State Park area, which did not have an EF3, but suffered significant damage across a large area where it appeared that 2 smaller tornadoes had basically collided. And what was substantial about this is there's a lot of paved and unpaved roads, but as well as trail network that needed a lot of manpower to work on. So at this time, I want to bring up Jeff Brazil, our district forester from that area, to highlight some of the work we did in Hobbs State Park, assisting their personnel.
And while Jeff's coming up, Nikki, would you stand for just a second? So when Robert was talking about District 6 and District 8 responded, these were the 2 leaders of those districts. Nikki's over District 8, and so provided leadership over that.
Okay, a little bit, I'll give you guys a little bit. This turned into actually quite a commitment and a lot of work, and really proud of it. Just quickly, early June, I was contacted by Hobbs State Park Superintendent Mark Clippinger and was told about their damage in their trail network. The issue was they have 53 miles of trails that were heavily impacted. Part of their trail network was in the heavily impacted areas. And their trails, you know, these are the hiking trails, some of the monument bike trails, heavily used in that area. We were asked if we could come in and give a little assistance with chainsaw work. Some of this is, you can't get equipment into it. So we agreed, and we sent up saw teams and 2 bulldozers, worked a total of 7 shifts. A couple of the slides You know, part of what we fit this niche was being able to provide highly technical sawyers that were able to go into the storm damaged timber and operate safely. It's very, very hazardous. Just a quick idea of the maps, you know, you can see their trail networks. The highlighted trail in yellow is called the Pigeon Roost Trail. It's an 8.4 mile trail. That's what we agreed to work on for them. And in a matter of 7 shifts, we were able to clear that and make it safe for use. Like I said, we did end up being able to utilize 2 dozer units during the work. Those were for areas that the overhead hazards were just too much. That we could put a winch cable on them, pull the trees down. A lot of this, as I said, you know, at one point, we were having guys were hiking in 2-3 miles before they even began work that day. So it was a large project. We were able to help them. State Parks has been nothing but very, very gracious and thankful for our assistance. Now, this is actually the park, Superintendent Clippinger giving us briefing for that afternoon. We completed I believe our first day, you know, we can see in the background the trees that are still down. Great relationship being built there with State Parks. You know, it's an opportunity for us to work with them more, I hope. Here's a picture of some of the cutting area. This was just small shots, but absolute hangups. Our guys are in sawing. Darren wanted me to point out the gas district foresters do still run chainsaws. And this was a picture of our sawyers again. You know, D6, we've got around 40 employees. We're very lucky in this district to have this number of high level sawyers that are able to go into these and perform and get the work done. We were averaging about a mile a day, and that's pretty good moving when you're having to cut chunks up to hand movable sizes and move and make the area safe. So made a lot of good progress on a lot of really good work there. In the future, Mark and I have been talking about assistance that we may be able to provide in the future with this ongoing project. And at this point, it's gonna be us providing a dozer and an operator, and the state parks they're continuing to clear and cut. And the areas that we can bring equipment into and clear for them after they've been through, we will. If we get into another situation of very, very technical cutting, we'll take a look at how we can cooperate from there. You know, we were able to get this work done because we hit that time period post spring fire season and pre-summer. So that'll be a deciding factor in the future is if we're running a lot of fire danger, we may not be able to help, but we'll make that call when we need to. Okay, any questions on our Hobbs project?
Man, it's a compliment to y'all for having people trained on saws, because that's it's becoming a lost art. And so training is very important, and complimented on having that many already trained.
Well, district seems to look, but I'm actually the chainsaw trainer. So
He's the guy.
my guys get a lot of chainsaw work.
But yeah, you have interlocking trees, it's really.
Oh, yeah, but it's good chainsaw operators.
Yes, it's getting tough to find folks willing to do that work.
The people in the community, I know the people that you're working with know what you're doing, but the county officials and state representatives, do they know the work that you're doing in these areas?
Yes, and especially that area because our initial mission was to just cut the material. And then the trail volunteer groups, and there'd been a big outreach of getting volunteers to come in behind us and then physically move the material. Yeah.
And I can comment on that a little bit. So we worked in unison with the governor's office because they were getting requests for these actions as well. And the community leaders, particularly on the urban side of things, Chrissy provided a lot of consultation to different communities up there, not just the tree hazard assessments. And the leaders of those cities reached out and just said, they really appreciate the effort that we provided. So
Well, in industry, we talk about being ready rather than getting ready. And that's why you gotta have the people, you gotta have the training, you gotta have the equipment. Because these things don't schedule when they're gonna hit you. And we gotta be able to respond. And so congratulations, great job.
I do want to make one more, note here. So we did that initial assessment, Chandler's not done with it yet. So we did those flights, we did some ground truthing, we did remote sensing work. And we came up with some, damage estimates, and we shared that with Dr. Pelkey and the Center for Forest Business down there, and I handed out an overall economic impact that the Center for Forest Business did. That was an extension of this initial work that we did. And just want to point out and thank you for that. And you can see, if you look at it from, jobs, impact on the logging industry, you're talking about tens of millions of dollars.
Thank you, guys.
Chairman, can I interrupt, money that the governor asked for, federal relief money, is that gonna be for reforestation mostly? Or?
Yeah, so what that will look like is funding provided through the FSA Farm Service that is called EFRP, Emergency Forest Restoration Program. So that is funding that will, for landowners that are applied and signed up for it, can be reimbursed. I think it's 75% of the costs of mitigation and replanting. So as long as they get with their local FSA agent and request the funding, they should be able to get access to.
And that's a big deal. Right now, they have already, named Baxter and Marion counties as EFRPs, designated counties. We're working on with FSA to get, Benton County, because it's meeting as well. But those are really important, to those areas, not only from a reforestation standpoint or a rehabilitation standpoint for the forest, but there's a lot of increased fuels up there now. And I know the people in those areas are gonna be doing some of their own burning with brush piles and things, so our wildfire risk will be elevated in those areas. And so the debris removal side of this is big as well.
Yeah. That's 75% that the government's gonna pay, and the 25% to the landowner. Is that for seedlings and site prep and everything? The 75%?
Yes, I believe so.
So it's total of all that, where it takes.
There is a threshold limit to how much you can ask for. I don't know that number though, off the top of my head.
But yeah, any questions that you have a conversation with the Farm Service Agency as the administrative authority over that, we'll help get landowners to them, and we get them, I'm sharing these shape files with them this week so they can identify landowners in those areas, but they're the ones that really get into the weeds with it.
So yeah, to that point, that these assessment areas are the way we initiate our role in that process. This is where we understand majority of the work needs to happen. And we have this shared with our field personnel as well, connecting them with information that the FSA is providing, so that when the time comes that a planting plan needs to be written, we're able to provide that. Well, I do want to highlight, now that we're getting into District 8, with Nikki's district. One area just west of Yellville was a very long PF3 tract. There is a lot of pasture land use throughout this area and non-forest land use, but just the size of the tract really made it a large area of forest impact. So a lot of work can be done here as well. The last area I wanted to point out is around Norfolk Lake. Through the town of Salesville and across the lake, there's heavily forested land use there. So a great amount of down trees here, and reforestation efforts are greatly needed.
Yeah, this one in particular was estimated at 70 to 90% of the trees. And that was good.
That concludes my my tornado information. We've done a lot, and we're positioned well to serve our candidates in crises like this, so.
Right, I've seen a news clip that said Arkansas had more tornadoes in Arkansas than any other state. So you may get real good at this.
So my last topic of discussion is our monitoring efforts of pine health in southeast Arkansas. We had sampled many locations throughout that region last year and further developed that protocol into sampling pine needles for testing for chemical and pathogen present. And so what I'm summarizing here is the samples that were collected this year between February and May. So 28 different samples in pine plantation were collected. All of these samples were on symptomatic trees. That's trees that had some sort of browning or discoloration that indicated an unhealthy condition. All of these trees were within stand. So they're not trees that were immediately adjacent to a crop field. They were within the property. And so the results had come back from the labs that we used, and I'm just going to go through each of these three things. For the paraquat testing, 46% of the samples had a detection of paraquat to some degree. This is measured in parts per billion. So the instruments for detecting these chemicals are very precise. And second is we also asked the lab to test for dicamba presence, and 25% of those samples did have a positive presence. And lastly, with all of the collections, we sent samples to all but two, excuse me. We sent samples to a pathologist with the U.S. Forest Service to analyze presence of brown spot needle blight, which is a pathogen that's become increasingly troublesome in wildlife of the southeast. And nearly half of those samples were confirmed with having brown spot needle blight present. So all of these three things can cause brown spotting on pine. So we wanted to use this test to see what was there and what we can say, detect or confirm.
Do we have any idea of what? I understand the pathological process around it, but do we have any density or sites, or have any idea of what causes that browning?
You can answer. Sure. Okay. I think where you're headed with that is like with the chemicals. What's the threshold?
Well, it's not actually chemical from pathology. Chemical, we know, I mean, it comes from somewhere where kind of bad money. But
You're talking about the source.
Is it site cause of that, the trees on the wrong side? Or is it, other instances that causes that rather than, I mean, I'm looking at what is it, it's gonna move into other areas. You know, there was a lot of pine tree planted in the Delta on sites that were not pine sites. Is this the cause, is this the cause of that, or do we look for it to spread across the state of Arkansas in the pine sector?
So brown spot needle blight is likely to be found anywhere in the state. It's ever present, and it's a native pathogen that's been here, but something has changed that allows it to be more of an issue to wildlife, and that's a recent problem, not an Arkansas problem only. It's brown spot needle blight has been found or implicated to cause decline or mortality in other states. Alabama, in particular, has spent a lot of time looking at brown spot needle blight. They've got stands that are dying, and there's no indication that other factors like chemical are at play there. So we know, based on that example, that pathogen is capable of killing trees. In Arkansas, what is causing the area to be where we have stands die back? It may not only be brown spot needle blight, but it's there.
I understand the chemical effects to the farm, but I just worry about it becoming an issue like.
So we expanded our flights this year and county talked about that, we flew in, lead this year as well.
Yeah, so
Look at just what you're talking about.
across the whole delta, you can find some sort of presence of browning pine trees. I think you probably have a higher concentration of pine plantation in the southern part of the delta. Focusing in on that area. I've seen stands that look like they had brown spot symptoms close to Oklahoma over in the western.
Do you notice those stands that are too dense because we're actually not able to spend thinner temperature we should?
That can certainly be a factor.
Is that where it happens or I'm just curious.
Yeah, so there's multiple things at play there. One, in our plantations, there's some research that's just beginning. I think some is already showing some results. In our plantations, there may be a genetic component there where there's some trees that were developed, 20, 30 years ago that are more susceptible to brown spot. We didn't know it. So there's that possibility, and Texas A&M Forest Service is looking into that right now. I believe Auburn doing some of that, I believe.
Oh, yes, there are many labs working on this.
Yeah, and then, the other side of it is, like, we did flights in Perry and Saline, I believe, this year. And that was, we were having browning up pines over there. Well, it was needle cast, it wasn't brown spot needle blight. So you have to be careful to seeing browning needles and saying that's brown spot, because that was needle cast.
To that point, it's extremely difficult
But
to
it's-
tease out what
It's
species.
mostly in plantation,
What's that?
or mostly in plantation.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Have you sampled any non-symptomatic trees in those areas just to see if they have any of these characteristics?
That's a good point, a good control. We have not,
Did we do that last year? We did some.
well, it was the same tree. So, no, sir, we haven't done specifically that, a control on non-symptomatic trees. We're really trying to figure out what has caused the symptoms that we're seeing. That may be something a lab in the near future can do.
What do we tell landowners when they've got brown spot needle blight? What do? Cut the trees down, burn them? I mean, is there a solution or?
In most cases where there's not other variables at play, needle diseases are cyclical and trees recover from them every year. I've been monitoring a stand in Perry County amongst the national forest. It just happens to be an old industry land acquired by the national forest. And that loblolly stand is brown every April, it greens up soon after, every year.
So far, you just talked about loblollies, so there's no effect on short-leaf trees.
So it's capable, if we're talking about brown spot needle blight, it is capable of infesting shortleaf, but it does not cause the harm that it seems to do on loblolly.
And there's no short leaf. It's too wet.
Yes, sir.
Chandler, on your samples, how many of those were paraquat and dicamba on the same sample?
There were some examples of that.
I'm trying to think about how many of the samples total had a herbicide component, because I'm sure probably not the two of those added, or some of those.
Oh, sure, like, if having any one of those two, would that percentage be greater?
Of the samples, how many of them had a herbicide percent?
I don't know how many,
But it would be greater than 50%?
possibly, yeah. now that we have the result, this is last week.
And so I'm just looking at, so over half our samples, we have a pesticide that's applied that's off-site.
Without looking at the numbers, I'd say around 50%.
Yeah. I mean, 46 of them have paraquat, so I'm saying there's probably a couple of them maybe that
Yeah.
could have had dicamba that didn't have paraquat.
I'm preparing to put together a more substantial report to detail what was collected and found.
So in half of these sites that we've detected, there's a violation of the herbicide label that's moved off-site.
Chemicals should not be there.
Correct. I mean, brown spot needle blight, we can't control. It's a natural occurrence. Herbicide is a side issue.
And that's the elephant in the room. Is it brown spot needle blight or is it a herbicide? And how did it get there?
We may not be able to answer that.
I understand, but that's what the landowner wants to
But
know.
the herbicide, you don't have recovery of the. You have recovery of the tree after the herbicide.
Let me take that. I think that's, let me back up and set the stage for where we are. When we first started this sampling, it was prior to me even becoming a state forester, I was still an extension at that time. And we worked with UAM, we worked with AFA, we worked with Division of Ag, the U of A, so it was a collaborative effort. And what we were trying to do, because there was a lot of speculation flying around about this killing everything, we said, we want to concretely identify causative factors. That was step one, and that's kind of what this is. We've identified the causative factors that are there. Climate is part of this as well. We've had some terrible years for trees and really stressing our trees out. Where we are now with this, and we're gonna continue to resample these through the end of this growing season. I think having a whole growing season will tell a better story than just a snapshot. Where we are now, and we do have a new forest health center coming online, is looking at some of those thresholds of, okay, if a pine tree got hit by paraquat, what's the threshold for how much is too much? And when does that tree get injured? When does that tree experience mortality? There are really no studies out there that identify that. And that's kind of where we are in the process. And Dr. Blazer's not here today, but kind of speaking for him, that's kind of where we are.
Have we done anything yet to sensitize the, I'll call it, spraying community as far as what can be effective when they're supposed to be spraying an ag field and there's forest associated with it? And
I think this, Scott Bray, our division director for plant industries, and I think one of the action steps for us here is going to be education.
that's what I'm talking about. I mean, you've got to educate those folks, okay? And because on the forestry side, if we were spraying something, we'd be looking at everything around us. And we'd have records on what was sprayed and exactly how much chemical was in it. That type of information has got to get on the ag side. That's right. And documentation, because all the flight paths are there. Then all you got is what's the spray that could be associated with it, but you got wind information. So, but, I mean, there's a training
Absolutely.
opportunity and an education opportunity.
And, this is going up a little bit, my old position that had that type of role at Extension, we are filling that now, or they are. And so we will have someone that can facilitate those type things as well on the Barker Extension side.
Yeah, that we can work with and know that training, might even need a certification.
How long has it been since this kind of become a problem? When did we start, how long ago did we identify the problem?
I'd say, late 2022 is when we started to see pine mortality in the Delta. On a large scale.
Good work.
That's it for me.
You get a lot of questions in regard to this.
Absolutely.
They see in the news for last year, some briefing, and they wondering when it's gonna happen.
So, and we understand the frustration. I mean, Max has as well on landowners that are affected by this. I mean, I understand. I would be very,
So we probably have a better, information about it as anyone in a forest commission. We don't know. We don't know what that area is.
There's some conflicting things on brown spot. Some of the thin stands, I don't want to spend too much time on it, I guess, but some of the thin stands have actually shown increases in infestation and infection, and that doesn't make any sense at all.
Tree in the shreds.
Yeah.
You're gonna get some.
I personally, I think, I don't want to get into it too much, but I think there's some weather patterns pushing that as well.
I would just say, we do a lot of important things for the public. This is one that we've got to stay focused on so that we can provide accurate answers rather than people running down rabbit trails, just hunting somebody to blame.
Concludes my part.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good morning. Want to start off with Welcome Nursery. Our 2025 crop is complete. It's all in. And that was completed in May. And so if you're a farmer, rain is a very important thing, too much or too little. We had, during this time period, we had 28 days of rain and, total of 22 inches fall. And so just to kind of give you a perspective on that, the average rainfall is about 57 inches during the year. So our people persisted and they did a good job. They put in 27 million seeds and 864 beds. And that was on 60.6 acres. So they did a really good job. And we're expecting out of that to get about 9.5 million to 10.6 million seedling harvest. And so 23% would be pine and 77% would be hardwood. So after they got the crop in, they began working on fertilization, topping the trees, cutting the tops out of them so they can get uniform growth, and then weed and grass control. And what you're looking at here is a Roundup mop, and Roundup is whipped through those ropes that you see on there. And as they pass over the seedlings, it only touches the tall grass. And so, Roundup kills everything. So it doesn't touch the seedlings and it's able to take out the grass that's overtopping the seedlings. They also were working on preparations for the Southern and Northeastern Nursery Association joint meeting, and that's going to occur July 22nd through the 25th. So they've been busy after they've got the crop in. We also received a John Deere 5105M tractor. That was received in May. We ordered it in October of 2023. So it took a while to get here. And the reason for that is it has a special crawler gear on it. I call it Granny Low, but anyway, it's important because you're able to move slowly through the field and control how you're shaping your beds. So that's a feature that we have to have on a tractor. And so that takes a while for the factory to make us a special tractor. We also bought a used cultivator, and we bought that from a dealer in Iowa. We searched the website and talked to our dealers and came up with a really good shaped cultivator, and it greatly increases our efficiency. The one on the left is what we've been using. It's a one bed cultivator, and so we've gone from 1 to 5 at a time. So that's a market increase there. And also that small picture shows that it folds up as well when you're storing it. For our, 2023, forest survey information, that's out and available to the public. The forest inventory analysis was completed for that year and processed. So you've got, in your packages, a sheet on the survey, that I gave you, and I'll go over just a few of the highlights. There were 18.8 million acres of forest in the 2023 survey. That's 55% of Arkansas, and that's 11.5 billion trees that are in Arkansas. The pine volume was 502 million tons, and that's an increase of 11.7 tons over the 2020. The hardwood was 795 million tons and 11 million more than we had in the 2022. So I wanted to point out one that I'm always interested in, and it's the growth and removals. And so for the hardwood, we did have a change. There were more, there was more growth than removal. We went from 2.7 to 3.0, and that's attributed to less removals. For the pine growth, it remained the same as 2022. We had more growth and we had more removals, so it just remained the same. And I did want to say that our guys are really doing a great job. They are the number one state, or we are the number one state in percentage of completion of our plots. We're in the southern region of the Forest Service, so there's about 13 states, and we're on a 5-year cycle, and so we're the leader of the states in completing our plots. This map shows a purchase that Central Arkansas Water made, and it's in that red, the red chunk right there on the west side. It's in Perry County, and it's 1,965 acres that Central Arkansas Water purchased from Potlatch. And they used Forest Legacy money to do this. Of course, we're the state lead agency for Forest Legacy. And so the total cost on that tract was $8 million, and $6 million of it was from Forest Legacy. So that occurred in June, and that was a good purchase. The Central Arkansas Water, their main goal is to try to create a corridor along that big Maumelle River, so that they can filter out sediment and contaminants before it gets to Lake Maumelle. And a lot of us drink the water from Lake Maumelle, or here in Little Rock, and so that's a very important thing. They've also got conservation easements along there too, where they can't buy the property. They also, in 2012, this dark area there, that's 741 acres. That was also purchased with Forest Legacy dollars. And we've got 2 tracts that we're working on in the Hot Springs State Forest area, and one of them is 22 acres about, and the other one is 20 acres. And 20 the 12-acre tract is right next to one that we previously purchased, but we got purchase agreements on these tracts, right now.
Nature Conservancy involved, or where's the money coming from?
I'm sorry, it's, ANCRC, the
Natural resource.
yes, state money. State grant, put it that way. And so right now we've got about $7.3 million, between Forest Legacy and ANCRC grants that we are working to, purchase tracts in the Hot Springs State Forest area. And, these grants are, obligated towards certain tracts. And these tracts, if you add them up, it's about 663 acres. And so we're working with, the Conservation Fund. They're a similar organization to the Nature Conservancy. And, they help us with the timing of these purchases. They can go purchase the tracts ahead of us and then, wait until we can, purchase them from them. And so, that helps us greatly with the timing. They can move at the speed a private, world does. And that helps us, to be able to purchase a large number of tracts. And so, the great thing about it is we can, lump, several tracts into one. And so, right now we're doing appraisal so that we can be informed of the conservation.
But also you're developing future plans for how public can benefit from this land being owned and managed. Right, and that's one of the reasons that taxpayers say, why are we doing this? And why do we want to own this? And it is, there's a public benefit. I think that's very important, and at some point in time, you'll bring that to us, to show us. We've already built in the area of Jason. There's a lot of opportunities here to see a big pop. Is a question for any until announcement to be made, these without the state forest. Be prepared to read it. So it may take a little but that's still the plan. So there'd be a big public benefit.
So we saw this last page, the update you in Baxter County, purchase 1.45 acres, 30-40 metal shop. And once we put a mobile home on it, put septic system, well, and it'll be ready for works. So closing of this track scheduled for July 3rd. Things out of the shop. Get the check wrapped up. So, saw all the presentation, coordinating
First thing I thought. Her sales field is very close. You did put in. All ribbon. Food. Several. Man. States. Later. Very. Yeah. Lead the 7 districts. Completed. 500 men. With completion for 53,000 acres. We conducted 130 crown burns, treated 700 acres. And we constructed 137 miles of farming. We provided 30 picking positions to 3,600 land. So paid a crew, we collected 507,000 in sugar. We still have 3 cut tracks that haven't begun yet. And we currently have no long. So look here, picture, this is a shop at the Golden Spring Work Center. We worked out to get a new roof here. Everything's expensive. But we're trying to get some improvements done every year. See what we got to do for and then. Try to keep it in- Say we had a 50 personnel. Tornadoes. We had a tornado over the time. And just whenever we're allocating resources, we're for the state, what people need, and helping everybody that we can. That we have work. Right.
Give you guys a brief update on. One country surrounded today. We also
Positions are pretty similar to where we've been for the last couple of quarters. 233 field positions. We have 22 positions advertised right now. We'll leave another 20 or so. We don't have everything. We're doing 260 total. One of the things that has come to light before they're there, we do have two positions that we're going to increase in 3 metric tons. One of those is the state wildfire. We have 5 state wildfire positions. Those are really close to us. We looked at 3 and 5. So we have areas in the state where we're gonna take it to, county parks, or state wildfires, to go in and help them and do things in those areas, we're gonna state one. We have one position open right now, we are going to expand our advertising with, helping that through what they, reaching out to university, and try to get that, so we had a really good thing before, the youth park service started. So we really catered that happen. We also have mentioned that bowling earlier, we have. We're going to be, university commission, and good applicants. Really, reach out. Okay. Yeah. Area, lots of just wow. Just recently, fill position there, 60%. We get to 70, and 30, and 50%. So it's really going to be, we do have to move forward between. Well, they're tornadoes, the education and experience necessary to improve so the applicants that we had, some were PhD. So we had some really, it was not. And for this, you need to understand hydrology, get creative. So not, it wasn't that they weren't qualified people, because they didn't fit into this exactly. And so this position works with basically Texas A&M Forest Services, working with the improvement program. Fred Rayleigh at Texas A&M ministers that program. So they do a lot of the layout, and so this person takes those implements the program. But this comes from the parent, the basic understanding of food genetics. And so where some of the confusion comes in is within the department of the city state, it's advertised as a program. So some of it may be labeled in the food science. So that's why I want to get some of these people who can really feel what position does. That's how you have to do the missing state, within those entities that might have some UAM, sorry, together. That may have someone that really kind of fits them. They don't have to be a geneticist. They do need to have an understanding of food. And that's some whole thing, another thing mentioned in I'm okay with us being patient for a position. We did that with our Forest Legacy position, person. And so if it takes us a few minutes to get the right person in the position, we'd rather do that and get someone in there, get there, and then I see what's good. It's kind of position can go off here. Just make everyone aware. Now you can have a big impact. Say, you're talking to your representatives and your senators at the local level, state employee pay scale. That's one thing we deal with in every department in the state, filling every position.
So we have to get more competitive to be able to attract new candidates. And I'm mentioning it because it's a serious problem for us to get the talent we need in every department in state government. So I just will make sure everybody's aware of it, and when those proposals come before the representatives out here, we need to support those, because that's the only way we're gonna get and keep those people. In the financial report for the period in the June 30th, 2024. The business finished with 8 million. So that is 6 million. 93. Well, Windows 7 and slightly. So everything to the new customer. He was starting to Right. Again, just going back to, we're all fully supportive of what's going on, it's just making sure it's a business and we're managing it and we're competitive as far as what we're doing here. They're the best ones in the area. See, say it first. No, we just have to be careful. Once you get behind, it's very hard to ever catch up. And the way to make the nursery more successful is make sure it's market based and competitive. We are
already. I think this plan to be. We get 3 years. Pretty rough. Which is 25, 26, 27, right, so, kind of like maybe 2 to 3 years. Well, that's all right, yes. Right, so cleared and. The money's coming from here. All. One thing that I don't see in here with the registered forester funds accounting, but we thought we were gonna have it here every quarter, must be looking at it, I don't see that report in our packet. Yeah, you know what, maybe, okay. Okay. You mentioned the nursery report. Yeah, we're here every financial report. Frankly, I think you say is the one from last quarter, is part of the minutes for the report. Okay, so we got, you know, what he's talking. Yes. Maybe, think that. Further question? This is also, this was the first year of me being, made it 1 year. I feel a little bit older. There's been ups and downs, hard times for me, learning processes for me, and, but you can see the team I had around me, makes stuff a lot easier. And, certainly couldn't do it with the folks that are in the group. I want to thank Secretary Ward for his support, me learning, having been patient with me, and getting through those. I'm very appreciative of everything. And you see the results of all the work we've done this year is really great. One thing I do want to mention is,
To all of our staff and the effort of the tornado damage, but I want to reiterate what Robert mentioned earlier. What the staff mentioned earlier, our mission is fire enforcement. And both ground fire and wildfire from an emergency services standpoint, wildfire is up there. So when we have tornadoes and things like that, we're really fortunate this time to be able to communicate more than resources to that. But when we hit times of year, the wildfire events are occurring, that is going to come first. Make sure we consider them. And then the health, obviously, as much as we possibly can in other areas as well. I want to thank again Secretary Ward and Governor's Office, we all work in unison with the response and group effort. The Center for Forest Business and Utility. I think we've kind of got a template in place now, so they're fairly new as well. We come in and do these assessments, and you saw the maps earlier, kind of do that initial and ground care assessment. Takes that to get us that information for the industry across the state. And certainly we make sure that people are really able to afford it. County level staff and district level staff, and those requirements. On the equipment follow-up, obviously that's a challenge, things aren't getting cheaper. Those that used to be $160,000 a year, and now $230,000 per unit. And so we had those obstacles, and we met with both the new secretary this year for both short-term solutions and long-term solutions. And a lot of that's just education, giving information from the state leaders, and making them aware of the need to do them aware. So we're working. Recruitment, I'll tell you that again, just to say, you saw the training that Robert has completed this spring. That's something that's important to you, especially having an education background and the safety and hazardous work that our personnel do. I want us to be as trained as we possibly can and as informed as possibly can for the natives. And that's on the wildfire side and in the forest management. The information we're getting around is their retirement and is incorrect. So it's not just first. Again, I just want to sum things up with acknowledging Steve Anthony because two terms of service commission and really appreciate him for this time here. We look forward to working with him. Certainly glad to have you here and appreciate you serving and giving us work. Any questions? I would just like to say, shoes he had to fill, we couldn't have been more blessed with how he gets into this position, seamless transition, and candidly, the fresh look at the market position and what we did and how we did. I'll just tell you, Kyle is doing a great job. And Secretary Ward, I want to thank you for your support for the commission. Because people and equipment is what it's all about. We know you're working. We appreciate it. Kyle, we're thankful. You're making a difference. And that's good. And we still in good shape for the federal regulation. Yeah, I think, I think it's very big in the education process. It's got to be there. It's not something that you use every day, but if you don't have it, you have it, you become, so that's the conversation. 50 acre conversation, 5,000. The conversation with Secretary Ward had, well, topics that were in the process as well. Did a lot of our previous life as well. But no, having the resources, the people and equipment in place We have a bad year, we're gonna have to get those, those have to be in place ahead of time. And then when you do have that bad year, that you will, then you're looking at emergency funding, and emergency resources. So we can have, work is really good. Having feedback and fun of our activities. When you get in a study process, when you look at our numbers and things like that, it looks like we said there are something to we tell you. Made, say, well, again, and some of them do come to the city to stop on everything. Here comes our job. Very sure people like this. We had a decision here, but we didn't hear. And that's how the one doesn't cost itself, how we prepare to the city, and that's not really prepare stuff, but we are in a better position. You know, we have seek resources, we have things in space, there's just a lot of things that we have for those states on the very blessed. Having said that, there are still areas that we need to go. And we did contact talking about some person in the states. Always help Louisiana. We also see people from Mississippi. We also see people from other states. We just want to be in a position that we don't have to something for us to because of the various real simple. Be ready rather than get ready. Any other questions? You think? Change the order just a bit as far as our next meeting. I would throw out the date October the 11th. Friday. Set that name. Okay, October 11th, Little Rock. I'm in there kind of stuff. Okay, so that's our next meeting. Yeah, I remind everyone that we're going to recess this meeting without adjournment. Recess this meeting, reconvene at 1 o'clock. Hearing associated with registered forestry. Anything to add there? I need as many as can to stay. Mr. Chairman, and this is complete, this is the commission, that I said everybody's over here, because I'm trying to feel a little rumble too. We can go through a new development that's on this new docket and complaint or issues with the revised letter that this individual had sent in stating still a practice of forestry in general use company. That has now been changed, and the department's doing that. That has been changed to where it is satisfied the concerns in this meeting. I can go get everything that I have on my desk to present from the attorney from that to y'all before lunch, or totally stay y'all will eat before taking a look at this. Y'all can see before in lieu of having it here. Well, we'll have to report for this stuff. We can call on and hear y'all. The commission is do whatever we need to do. We just need to know what you want to do. If you're ready to move into it, then we can move into it. Other commission. Okay. The public hearing too, so anybody can stay on.
Mr. Chairman, for the record, I'm going to excuse myself from the room.
Okay, and do we expect anybody to show up? You're okay with this?
We asked if the report wouldn't show up. And I wonder. Let it go for several years. We said, the reporting. Well, yeah, I think I can. Right.